What up, everybody? J. Richard Bird here. So good, so glad to see you. We have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night with you today. I have my good friend, the Right Reverend. I'm not gonna say that. Okay, the big attorney, Attorney James Walker, with us today, and we're going to just have a simple discussion on things that are legal and things that are on Broadway. One of the things that he's making a move to now, and so yeah, we're just going to have a really really good time. So join in, throw your comments in, go grab some people, grab yourself a cup of coffee. I got my cup of coffee from our good friend Ramon Peralta and Peralta Design. To have some stuff to hang out with us. So going to jump right in and invite my good friend, Attorney Walker, to the stage. What is up, sir?
Good to be here, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Just, it's always good to hang out with the brethren.
Always good. Always good.
Always good. And so how have you been?
I have been blessed, man. I'm just pinching myself. This thing we call life is just so incredible and so many opportunities. Everybody's healthy, grandparents, the kids, the grandkids, everybody. So it's a beautiful day.
That's good, man. So JW, a lot of people know you, but a lot of people don't know you. So I just want to start this conversation off with you just walking us a little bit through what we call, the origin story. Like how did you first get started in entertainment? And then we'll jump into the rest of that stuff as we go along.
I was sitting in a communication class. I wanted to be a sportscaster. And a classmate of mine was giving parties. And I looked over and I see these flyers on his desk. I'm like, what's he doing? So I asked him, I said, yo, man, what you doing? He said, hey, I do some parties on the weekend. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'd love to help you. So I started off just a guy passing out flyers. And then me being like yourself, I started doing the analytics. Like, well, he's spending a lot on these flyers. He's not getting impact. Maybe if we hired some people to kind of market for us on campus, maybe we did some radio. So he and I got together, became a partnership, Frank Love and Stillwater, my nickname. And we started doing parties like my sophomore, junior year of college. And we probably did, 40, 50 parties or more because we were doing them every weekend to help pay for school. And it just took off. We went from parties to step shows to concerts to plays, right into entertainment law.
And so what really pushed you into law? Like what was that thing that said, hey, I'm out here promoting, but let me jump into the legal side of this?
When we got through like the step shows and the parties, we started doing concerts. And one of the early concerts I did was a lady by the name of Phyllis Hyman. And Phyllis Hyman started explaining to me that we didn't have Black entertainment lawyers. I always knew as a child I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. I always looked up to Thurgood Marshall. I always looked up to the legal shows. So I always knew I wanted to be in the law, but I thought I'd be doing civil rights law. Mm-hmm. I'd be out here, doing more probably what Ben Crump does or John Britton or some of those guys. And Phyllis Hyman just on a fluke one night, smoking a cigarette at the bar, she just kind of pulled me up after a show I paid her for and said, what are you going to do with your life? I heard you might go to law school. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be a civil rights lawyer and I'm going to fight for my people and get justice. And then she said, well, we need people like you in the entertainment industry. And I said, why? And she said, there weren't many Black entertainment lawyers back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. And she just put that seed in me. And then I kept doing shows, Kirk Franklin, Belle Biv DeVoe, Will Smith, when they had the Club MTV tour, I was bringing it to Connecticut. Plays by David Talbert, plays by Tyler Perry. I was always the guy in Connecticut just putting on the local piece of the national piece and getting a little crumb on it. And then I went to law school and I was in class in the daytime and my shows were running in the nighttime. I remember doing a show at the Warner Theater. And it was so great to come back to DC with MJ the Musical 30 years later. Mm-hmm. But I was doing a show, and it was some people would say Chitlin Circus shows, how do you love a Black woman? how do you, those, remember those shows?
Yeah, no, I definitely remember.
We said, they said, but who is he really? We used to do those kind of shows. And Hugo Bryson or Jeffrey Osborne or, Deatra Hicks in it or somebody of that nature. And when I got to law school, I was still promoting shows, still doing parties, still doing step shows. And my law professor, Spencer Boyer, sat me down one day, looked at my contracts and told me how much work they needed. And I was like, oh. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to really do contracts in the entertainment space. And I didn't really know it was called entertainment law. I just knew I liked doing contracts. And then one time I was in college and someone hit my car and they had an Avis rental car. So we sued Avis. My senior year of Howard University, I sued Avis pro se, meaning representing yourself. And I remember winning the case and the judge saying, you should really consider law school, because I put together, all the exhibits and all of the police report and proved that the car was stolen when it hit me, but Avis hadn't reported it as stolen, so they were technically still liable. So we won that case, and now we just sue Fortune 500s and everybody.
So you trying to tell the people out here that you began your law career by suing a Fortune 500 company and winning?
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably a $5,000 case, but to a 19, 20-year-old kid, that was like, it was a major case back then.
Yeah, and that was that moment that you realized you wanted to be Johnny Cochran.
Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, at that moment when they said you won, you turned around, you threw your hands up, it was like, that's it. We saw in the rest of the world.
I thought I would be doing civil rights. I thought I would be going in and really helping black artists, not black artists, excuse me, black people with civil rights issues, Mississippi, Alabama. I thought I'd be, we all had that image like we're going to be marching on the front line, civil rights.
Yeah, and I think people don't catch that, you're a graduate of Howard. And correct. So that whole HBCU and that whole, taking care of the little guy is just something that was instilled not just in Connecticut, but once you went away to college, that whole thing about how to just take care of the little guy. And if you really think about that, that has kind of been the undercurrent of what you've been doing ever since then.
No, it's funny because you don't realize how much Howard instills in you as a social engineer, meaning you go out here and you look at the situation, you don't care what the rules say, we're going to fight for justice. Everybody can say, well, we can't do that. Well, there's no law on that. Well, there will be one tomorrow because we went to Howard, and this is what the spirit of Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston and Constance Motley Baker and all these other great legal icons, this is the spirit that permeates the hallways of our law school. And I've trained now probably 20 or 30 Howard Law students.
Yeah, I was just going to say that whole give back is even happening right now because you have a ton of interns and other law students that you've trained, not just this year, but you trained years past. Like, what makes you go back and reach back to grab those people? Like, what's that pushes you?
Well, Spencer Boyer did it for me. J. Clay Smith did it for me. Johnny Cochran did it for me. When I was on Court TV with Johnny Cochran for years as a guest legal analyst, he would often take me in his office. He would call me Young Blood. He'd say, what's going on today, Young Blood? And I remember him just teaching me, like, this is what it's going to take you to start your own firm. Because I was at a big firm at the time, and I was trying to figure out, how do I get on my own? How do I build my own firm? I'm a second, third year attorney. I don't want to work for the man forever, as they say. And Johnny Cochran started explaining to me, you got to put away 6 months. Mm-hmm. By 6 months, you'll be okay. So I go back to the young people because the OGs came back to me. It's just what we're supposed to do. And I also feel like I have a unique experience in some ways because I did the big firm, did Howard, did Yale, I did all the different schools. I've done entertainment law. We litigate, we do transactional, we run a firm. So when we train a young person, we're able to teach them, you know this firsthand, we're able to teach them hands-on. This is how you open a building. This is right. How you buy a building. This is how you build your team. This is how you do your marketing. This is how you do your staffing. And most firms are not going to give these young kids that. We try to make sure they come in, young students, I should say. We want to make sure these law students come in here and see a real bird's eye view of this is what entertainment law is. This is what entrepreneurship looks like when you're a lawyer, because you're an entrepreneur. They don't realize it, but they're really entrepreneurs. They're having to run their own firm and run their own business. And you got to deal with are the lights on? Do we have bags for the garbage cans? Do we have enough water bottles for everybody? Is the conference room ready for that big meeting today? Are the phone lines working right? Is the internet working right? Do we have enough parking outside? These are some of the things you have to see ahead of before that day comes and Richard Byrd walks in with Yolanda Adams and her whole team, and y'all need 8 seats in the conference room, but y'all only got 6. And you got to think of these little tiny details that you don't have to think of when you're downtown at, Greenberg Trotwick or some big mega firm.
Right. I think one of the things that we've always tried to teach the students coming in is, you have to have a book of business. You are only as valuable to the firm based on what you're bringing in and how you're billing, which really makes you a business within a business. And I think that is one of the key things that we do at Walker and Associates is teach young attorneys and just regular people who come through the door how to be entrepreneurs, because as we say often on the panels, it is the music business and you cannot separate the two. And you said real quick there, you passed over, you kind of flossed over it. You said Yale University. And so let me just pause there because that's a part of you that you try to jump off real quick. Let's talk about the Yale University. Bird Boy Mom over here said, thank you for taking time to give me a little training.
Oh, okay. And thank you for training me, Bird Mama. Bird Boy 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Mama.
So talk to us about Yale.
Yeah, when I was maybe 5 or 6 years into my practice, I was working with a lot of gospel artists, working in the church ministry, and I always wanted to just study the Word of God more. I wanted to study the Bible more, so I went to Yale Divinity School, got my master's, thanks to people like you who supported me at the time and made sure my kids were getting from point A to point B while I was taking 2 or 3 classes a semester, got the master's in 2002, I believe. And, we took that, spun it into running a halfway house, doing kind of transitional ministry. We still do a lot of that work privately behind the scenes. It's been announced publicly, so I can share it here. We just partnered with Cornerstone Church to start helping their food pantry that we actually incorporated 12 years ago with Pastor Watts, my dear friend and classmate. So we're now going to be a financial partner to the food pantry for the next 5 years in Milford, Cornerstone Christian Center in Milford. So, and I'm very excited about that because they're feeding thousands of people annually, just thousands of people. And I think the vision is that we have a supermarket at the church one day where you can just drive through with your buggy and get what you need. Because you'd be surprised, Richard, people don't realize in this current state of America, you could have a couple both making $35,000, $40,000 a year, but groceries could be tight. After they pay the mortgage, the private school tuition, the athletic events for the kids, the car, the gas, by the time they pay everything, they may not have $500, $600 a month for groceries. So it's not just the homeless walking in. You got regular working class America walking into these churches or these food pantries and needing a little bit of help.
Yeah, and it's not even just 30 and 40,000. I mean, we're talking people who are making 80 and 90 and 100,000. When you look at a mortgage that is upwards $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and I was just looking at my father's medication, and it wasn't a major increase based off of what he's paying, but it literally was a 45% increase in 2 months.
Wow.
So it's like, when you're looking at things like that, being able to create social enterprises and avenues for nonprofits, which I know is something that's quite important to you, is going to be super important going forward. What I want people to try to get from this conversation is that you and we don't just build to make money.
Right.
That we build to influence culture and legacy. And so, again, you glossed over it. That included a halfway house.
Halfway house for 7 years, in which, to me, the food pantry and the halfway house, if you had to say what are 2 things in the last 10 or 20 years that I really love doing, it would be the halfway house and the food pantry. Like, those are the 2 things, particularly halfway house, because that was kind of my baby. The Joshua House in Hartford for years with a lady named Corinne Dawson Bonner, who had a female house and we had a male house. Right. And we probably saw a good 200 men over a 7-year period until I moved to Atlanta. So I really miss that life.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to do it here in Atlanta, but people think I'm supposed to practice law, so it's just the audacity, they think I'm going to practice law and not do these fun things like halfway house. And the thing I like about halfway house, and I tell men this all the time, when men are in prison, I can work with them sometimes and people coming out of prison, because unlike many of us on the outside, they know they're locked up. And many of us on the outside don't realize we're locked up.
Well,
so
that's why, preacher.
That's why I like with men on the inside, because they know the reality. Many of us are walking around every day and still mentally locked up and spiritually locked up, and we don't realize it. So you can't really help as many people as you want to help on the outside, whereas people on the inside, they've been broken or they've been through some stuff, and they're wide open like, hey, help me get the pieces back together. Help me get my license. Help me get my computer degree, my trucking degree. Help me get my high school diploma. Help me get my college diploma. So I really, really love that ministry, and I love people who are coming out and getting back to their families, getting back on their feet, men and women. So to me, that's kind of my number one main mission, is like, how do we inspire Black men to know that I grew up in Bridgeport, I lived in the projects, I saw everything you saw and then some in the Bridgeport projects, believe it or not. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know my story, so they immediately think, oh, he must have grew up in Westport, or he must have grew up in Greenwich somewhere. I almost said Greenwich because I'm from Bridgeport. I almost said Greenwich, but they don't know my story. So, what's that song? You don't know my story, right?
You don't know my story. You don't know my pain.
One of our favorite Connecticut singers, You Don't Know What I've Been Through, Kurt Carr, and Forever Mountain. It says that kind of thing. You don't know our story. You don't know how many cousins we've saw and brothers we've saw get in trouble with the law, get taken down, or get caught up. But for the grace of God, there go you or I. Mm-hmm. I was talking to my cousin Willie earlier today, and I said, man, you remember that time I got arrested because I bought a hot moped? I said, now what if my mother didn't do the right thing and my Uncle Bill didn't come bail me out? I'd be looking at probation and then 6 months. You mess up your whole life because you out here buying stuff off the street, not doing the research.
Listen, now you're telling on yourself. Another thing, though, James, that I've always admired about you is that just about every client who's come through the office, we've tried to instill some type of ministry or give back. So any artist, when we've done a touring deal, the first thing we ask is like, okay, what schools are you going to go to? What are the outside things that you're going to do in that? And I'll just say this, and we'll jump around and come back to it. But you just signed Jamal Roberts from American Idol. Mm-hmm. And just tell us really quickly, like, what's the first thing that you guys did, not legally, but the first thing you did when you got him into Atlanta to have a conversation with you?
First of all, you don't miss anything. You're the only person that caught that. The first thing I had him to do, I lined up 12 interviews, but the first trip he made was to a high school with me. And he spoke to 40 kids at a high school. That was the first thing I did to him. I said, I know you're a great singer. Everybody's told me you're a great singer. I've seen you sing a couple times on the show and on YouTube. I said, but the way we're going to work well together is if I can get you to see that your gift, just as great as singing, is your gift to speak and inspire. Just you talking to young people. So we called Robert John Connor, who does the Black Nativity here in Atlanta. If you've never seen it, it's the best Christmas play ever. I called my client, Robert Connor, and I said, Rob, I need a theater and I need some kids. And like I called him on Friday. And by Tuesday, Rob had 40, 50 kids at a high school at my home called Pebblebrook High School. And the kids went crazy. Jamal sat with them for about an hour, sang with them, answered questions. Then I called a friend of mine over at a TV station, and she brought ABC down, so they covered it. So it was just a wonderful thing. But yes, that's what we want clients to see, that this isn't just about making money. If you want a lawyer that's just going to make you money, we might not be the firm for you, because we want you to make money, but we want to see you change your life making money, but we also want to hopefully see you change other lives.
And so we often talk, you and I have conversations all the time. We often talk about this word that is now becoming a catchphrase, and that is legacy. Yep. What does legacy really mean to you? That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, how do you see yourself establishing that legacy? Like your everyday, what do you do daily to establish the legacy that you have?
Well, what I do is in my family, we have young people from about 18, 19 on up through 35. And my goal is that each of them owns a house in the next 5 years. So I'm trying to get them to come on Zooms, come to workshops, and not just own it, but understand we'll lend you the money, give you some of the money. We'll do everything it takes to empower you, because I really believe when you talk legacy and you talk about our folks, it starts with ownership. It starts with, okay, you're a 21-year-old kid, you buy your first house, your first condo, you own that house for 10 years. Let's say you bought it for 200 grand. By the time you get to 30 and you're getting married, that condo might have doubled in value, if not tripled, depending on where you buy it. So now you have what's called equity in the house. And we can take that equity out to pay for school or buy another house, or if you want to get married, you want to lavish. Well, you have so many options, but you're just really set up. And I'll use one of my children. One of my children started buying houses at 20, and now as they're getting up in 20s, they've got 3, 4, 5 properties, and they're able to, leverage it. If they cashed out tomorrow, they'd probably be a millionaire. So that's what you want to see people do. Like, buy something at 20, buy another thing at 22, another thing at 24, 25. By the time you're 30, you got 3 or 4 properties worth $1 million, $2 million. And if you decided to sell it all, you've got $1 million in the bank to start life. And if you look at this country without getting, radical, whatever, if you look at the generations on the other side of the spectrum, the non-African American generation, say Caucasians, they have 3 or 4 generations of property. So when they start life, they might be our age or they might be a generation behind us, but they're starting life so far ahead because they have all that property from the 18th, 19th, 20th century that's been passed on to them. So when they start life, they've got a house, nice savings, a little something. That's what I look at as legacy. And I'm trying to do that with, if you're on our payroll, if you're in our family, if you're related to us. First thing I'm gonna say to a young person, you can ask many of them that work in my office is, do you have a house yet? Do you have a condo yet? Because I don't want you to come work for Walker and Associates, Richard Bird. In 5 years, you've made us millions of dollars, but you're still living in, the dorm or, the rental property up the street, and you don't own nothing. That, to me, that it's that mentality of the pastor driving a Mercedes and everybody else broke. Like, I never wanted to be that law partner.
Right.
Staff is saying, well, he got a home and so-and-so, and he got another condo over here, blah, 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 but the whole staff is renting. Like, where they do that at? Like, that just, to me, doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, I can, as they say in church, I can testify to that. I started off answering phones. That whole conversation with, hey, can you just come answer a telephone? I thought I was just supposed to come by and answer the telephone for one day. We're 26 years into this thing now.
At least, yeah.
And within 3 years, I think, of you and I working together, I was able to buy your home. And then you went and bought another house. And then we took the equity out of both of the properties and we bought 33 units in Hartford. Then we took the proceeds out of that. We bought an office building in Stanford, an office building in Meriden, a condo here, And so that whole thing of leveraging. The funny part is, I'm empty nesting and you're almost there. I'm saying. And so I'm ready to buy an RV. And, folks, I kid you not, he called me like 2 weeks ago and was like, yo, there ain't no buildings or nothing you want in Charlotte. There's no property. There's no more property we need to buy in Charlotte. I need you to go out and find something and bring it back to the table. And let's go secure some deals. So I guess I'm going to buy another commercial building or something, because that's how this conversation goes. You spoke earlier about Phyllis Hyman.
Yes.
You spoke a little bit about David Talbert, and this is going to start to kind of move us into some other parts of the conversation. Talk to me about Mama, I Want to Sing, and then the early days of David Talbert, because people don't understand that you literally do have a theater background.
Sure. Right when I got out of law school, I was booking a play called The Knowledge with Crystal Perry. And then I met Vi Higginson and started working with Mama I Want to Sing and helping Vi with a few legal issues and trying to bring Mama I Want to Sing into Connecticut. And just Vi and her husband, Ken, rest in peace, started just teaching me the theatrical game. Then I met David Talbert. Then I met a guy named Kevin Cannon, and Kevin was doing all the plays for Shelley Garrett and all the national promoters with black plays, Detroit, Atlanta, all over the country. And they just started bringing me into the play game, just teaching me how you get the cast, how you do the auditions, how you send the script out, how you go to radio. And I just spent years learning the mythology behind the black plays in America and what works and what doesn't work, what's on Broadway, what's off Broadway, what's the Chitlin circuit, what are your budgets looking like? You and I think, did Bible stories in 2005 with Donald Lawrence and T.D. Jakes, That Woman Thou Art Loose, and Charlie Ward and Tanja Ward helped us there to put that one together. And that blew me away because we got close enough to Bishop Jakes' team to learn the model of how you make money in the black theatrical space. And I never thought I'd be back in the play game. This was the early to mid 90s into the 2000s. Then it kind of just went quiet. I might have a client or two doing a play and they might ask me to look over a contract or put together a deal or something. But I never thought I'd be doing Broadway. Never. It just fell in my lap. It's just blessing of God.
It's so your client base is huge. And from a lot of people think it's just gospel, but it is so much broader than just gospel music, and it's even broader than just doing record labels and artists. Talk to us very quickly about some of the people and the types of people that you represent.
Sure, it's been the whole gamut from Aretha Franklin to Kay Camp, from Jamie Foxx to Albertina Walker, from Freddie Jackson to Shirley Caesar, some ball players in between, your Marcus Camby, your Tabucky Jones, got a kid in South Carolina now, Donovan Murph, that's the next Travis Hunter to me, football player. I mean, I can go out down the list. Raven Johnson plays with Dawn now, won 2 championships with Dawn Staley. It's a whole gamut. I mean, Leandria Johnson, Twinkie Clark, who's my favorite, Hezekiah Walker. I mean, I've just been blessed. I don't want to name names because I'm going to forget 20 or 30 people. I think that gives you kind of the gamut of where we've been and just how many people have given us the privilege and opportunity. And I always say, give us just a little piece of the pie. I never come in and say, oh, let us do everything, because I believe if you're an entertainer, you might have 5 or 6 lawyers doing different things. And I'm fine with that because I really don't want to be the full-time guy all the time, because that takes up you're almost managing. If you're working with, a Sierra or something, and you're doing all the work she's got coming in, that's 30, 40 hours a week. And I don't want to do, that much in one lane. I like just kind of doing my expertise or my fun area.
And so you started, you started with Avis and doing litigation and jumped into entertainment law. And now you've gone full circle because you've been named for the last 5 years now?
I think it's 5.
One of the top Billboard entertainment media litigators. So let's talk real quickly about the litigation game and how that works.
Sure. I sued Sony, I think, in 2005, sued Malico in 95. And just by nature of the beast, a lot of times in the music industry, we said we're Christians, we're gospel music, we don't want to sue labels, it's about Jesus and we can't do that. And we agree, that you should try to work it out first. But oftentimes, many of the transactional lawyers will call our office and say, look, we don't litigate. Can you help us litigate against this record label? Most recently, everybody knows we helped Isaac Hayes in his battle against Donald Trump. So that one was probably the most mainstream one of recent years. But we've had to sue Sony. We've had to represent Andre Sims and his reclaiming of the Focus song, going after, the artist is connected with the Focus song. We've represented Take 6 and their ownership of the Could Have Been song or the copyright behind it. So we get that call full throttle. And right now we probably have about 40 or 50 open cases all over the country with 10, 15 lawyers working on different cases with us all over the country. And we don't shy away from it. We have, I think, 4 or 5 more that'll be filed this month of June. And we do it because we know someone has to protect the Black artists.
It's back to the little guy. It really is the little guy and protecting that guy in these huge transactions against sometimes these bigger corporations. And I think that's a piece that many people people don't catch with you. They think you're just a bulldog, or we're just coming in because we're mean and we just want to money grab. But it really is about someone has a story to tell, or someone has a copyright that they need to protect. And speaking of copyrights, what's the one thing, especially now that we're dealing in this whole AI situation and things, what is the one thing that you think an artist, or well, even business now, because now trademarks are huge. What is the one thing that someone who's dealing with IP needs to understand on day one?
Day one, they got to understand with AI and with the digital landscape now, you just can't put stuff up there no more. You just can't throw it out there easily no more. You got to be very, very over protective of your stuff. You got to be very, very wise in who you let hear it, where you post it, because you remember when YouTube first came out, everybody said, wait, they're playing everybody's music for free? And Prince was one of the few artists that said, oh, no, they're not playing mine. And he protected his space and kept his value, kept his masters very, very credible and valued that a lot. So I tell people all the time, with AI, just be careful what you're posting with your trademarks. Be careful when you put them out there and they don't have the registration done on them. And then you got a whole fight with somebody over who created what, when, and was it used in commerce? Did you have it out there first? Did you publish it? You don't want to get into those debates because it gets very tricky right now.
And would you say protect yourself as early as possible?
Yes.
Yeah. Protect
yourself as early as possible. Make people sign NDAs if you're circulating stuff. Have people signing something. You're not just letting people get access to your stuff for free, but make sure they sign something to protect you. And I know people are anxious and they want to be discovered and they want their music discovered. I totally get that. But don't be so anxious that you let down the normal legal requirements and the normal legal fences and guards that you need, safeguards that you need in place. Don't be so anxious that you just rush out. I gotta just, and you and I dealt with those kind of people. You say, well, why did you give them your music in the first place? Well, I just didn't know if I'd ever see them again, and I wanted them to have a copy of it. What? So that kind of thing.
Well, we're actually in a very interesting space of trying to maneuver through what is content and what is IP.
Right.
And what are you willing to give up in a content area, but what are you actually willing to hold in your intellectual property? Right. What does that look like? Most people don't gather that IP is an asset. It's something that can travel with your business. It is something that you have to protect it. Some people are getting sued right now for infringement, not because the entity really cares, but if you don't protect that copyright, you can lose it.
That's right.
If you don't protect the trademark, if you don't fight for it, you can lose it. Talk about that real quick.
Oh, I've had so many cases where somebody will walk in my office and say, so-and-so stole my music. Can you go after them for me? I heard you're the guy. And I'll say, sure, we can go after you. Then we get down the road and find out they never registered the copyright. So now we can't do what we want to do because there's certain damages you get when you have the registration, certain damages you don't get when you don't have the registration. So I've had that happen. Or we have someone give someone their music, they're in the studio working, and they're not clear over who did what. So you're trying to get them to fill out split sheets.
Sheets.
To know who did what on this song, because she has one version of what happened. You have another whole version. Both of y'all saying y'all wrote the hook. We don't know who, it just gets real iffy.
And all I did was walk in the studio and go, boom, boom, boom. All right, write me down for 20%.
All you did. You said, hey, I'm going to slide this lever up a little bit, bring that kick up a little.
Yeah, that's production credit.
Yeah, I want production credit now.
Jay, it is June, and there's a lot of things happening in June, but one of the things that and I'm sure you remember this, is at the end of this month, Michael Jackson passed away.
Yeah.
And you are in a unique position because you had some ancillary dealings with him, but we've also dealt with their family on many different cases.
Sure.
And people don't know that at the time you were very close with his personal attorney, or the attorney for the estate. Mm-hmm. So talk to us very quickly about your feelings on Michael Jackson, his legacy.
Yeah, it always this month is always a certain way for me because Michael died. Mr. Jackson, Michael, MJ, King of Pop, as we all call him, Died on June 25th. And I remember it vividly. I was at a cookout for my kids. Connecticut gets out of school in June. In Georgia, they get out in May. But when we were in Connecticut, we had another month. So they got out in June. And I was at a cookout with the kids, and we were wrapping the cookout, and I went to the kids and said, hey, I got to get to CNN. Michael Jackson was just rushed to the hospital. So CNN sent a car service. They picked us up, took me down to Columbus Circle where their New York office is. And we went live for, I think, 4 or 5 hours. You know, probably 10, 20 million people watching as we were going live as MJ was being rushed to the hospital, then ultimately pronounced dead. People were dancing at the Apollo. I'm on air with Roddy Jerkins and Essence Magazine and Walter Yetnikoff from CBS, all the heavyweights. They're on air, and we're all talking about Michael and what his life meant. And I remember I was one of the first ones that pointed out, me being me, that he was a civil rights icon. And some people were like, well, what's that mean? I said, well, MTV wouldn't play black videos. And Michael broke the door down at MTV as a black man with Thriller. When we were coming up, Thriller played all day. Thriller, Billie Jean Beat It, and MTV was just an infant as a network. They weren't the MTV of later years. They were like a small startup, basically, in the 80s when Michael Jackson came out with Thriller. So I always say he, Run DMC, and a few others really helped MTV build its lane as a musical, cultural, iconic company. So went on air, and I knew his brother. We had Abel Mason signed to Modern Records, which was owned by the Jackson Brothers. So I knew Randy, Marlon, worked with Tito later, rest in peace. So I've kind of had a connection to the family, you know, through that sentiment and through that circle. And then fast forward to 2022, MJ the Musical comes out, 2021, 2022. And one of my clients is producing it, Stephen Bird and Aaliyah Jones from Front Row Productions. And they invite me to join the production team and be a partner and investor on it. So we have MJ now with 5 casts on 4 continents, with probably 300-400 people working, you know, collectively in all the different shows, something like that.
So what was it like, though, to walk into the theater the very first time and see this show on stage? Because again, it started with, you know, Mama, I Want to Sing, Crystal Perry in Bridgeport, something very local.
Yeah.
You know, then moving through the machinations of how to build this thing, you know, and now you are walking into a theater in New York City as a part of the Broadway production people. What was that like?
First of all, it's mind-boggling. And Piano Lesson was right before MJ, to give fair credit to Mr. August Wilson, the godfather of Broadway, black godfather of Broadway. But yeah, it's mind-boggling. I've seen MJ now about a dozen times. I've been over to London to see it a couple times. I've been on the road with our traveling cast. I had some friends in Germany last weekend where it's playing there. I'd like to get to Australia this summer to see our cast there. To answer your question, you're just grateful to God because you didn't see it coming. You're grateful to these amazing actors who have put on such an incredible, I don't want to say imitation, but reflection of MJ, that if you close your eyes, you swear Michael was on the stage with any of our 5 casts, any of them, any of the guys playing Michael, Jamal, Roman, the original guy, Miles Frost, the guy down in Australia, the guy in Germany, Michael Das, the musical, you know, I mean, you just feel like, wow. And then bigger than the play, you appreciate what Michael Jackson did for us working today in the industry. I like to say Kirk Franklin created a lot of gospel music jobs. Michael Jackson created jobs across the globe, gospel, pop, R&B, you name it, in terms of what he meant to urban music, black music, pop music, all of that. So this play to me is just a spinoff. And when I started realizing this was the month of June, I said, man, as much as I love MJ, would we have MJ if Michael were alive? MJ the Musical.
Right.
And how much I wish he was alive to see the love he is getting now. Over 3 to 4 million people have seen MJ the Musical. And he's not here to receive that love. Right. He died a man a little broken from all of the investigations and the scandals. And I'm gonna say this as a 50-year-old man myself, you get beat up by this industry as you rise to the top. You get totally beat up. You get sometimes family drama because you're so successful. There's some who think, well, why him, not me, or can you help me? You can never do enough. And you look at MJ and how much he took care of his family and friends. At one point in the play, we say he had 300 or 400 people on his payroll. At one point, paying phone bills, light bills that he probably didn't even know about. He probably just called his business manager and said, "Oh yeah, that's cousin Richard. Yeah, I pay that. Yeah, that's cousin so and so. I pay that." Because that's what you do when you make millions in this business. You just think, "Oh, I'm supposed to just take care of everybody," and it's almost like you almost feel guilty
if you don't.
Success.
Yeah.
Well,
but I think the other part that Michael really showed us was what does it mean owning your publishing and owning the intellectual property, and that whole purchase was game changing on just how we approach the industry as a whole. Like, oh, do you mean me to go that?
Let me say this for the people who don't know. Michael bought the Beatles catalog and other catalogs. I think even Elvis Presley's, may have some M&Ms, but his whole catalog was worth about $2 billion when he died. And the family has cashed in and sold portions of it since then to make hundreds and hundreds of other million. And even as we use it with the play, we have to get permission from certain people to use the music to put it in the play. So his music is still making money for decades to come.
Ownership. Owning, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier. That is an asset. And we're often seeing, we'll probably have to do a whole nother show on this one, because we're seeing a whole lot of people who are now really capitalizing on their publishing. We've seen a lot of people sell things, sell their catalogs. We're seeing venture capitalist funds and asset managers buying up capital fund, buying up these masters and all of these royalties. And people don't, you and I back in the day, we were trying to do what we called the Bowie bond. Remember that? And having conversations with, hey, we can do this kind of deal. We can put your music on, on a stock index, and we can leverage this.
We're talking about David Pullman when we were trying to work with David Pullman.
Yeah,
what he's doing with the James Brown and the Bowie bonds.
Yeah, and David Bowie, David Bowie for Bowie bond. Yeah, and people. It's so interesting to see where you were ahead of the game, and now people are catching up. And so now that we're on Broadway, now that you've gone up there, piano lessons first, that's Samuel Jackson, Denzel's son. Denzel was in that.
He was a producer. I think he was executive.
Yeah. We've gone over to MJ the musical. You're doing moonwalking down 42nd Street, and then you turn around and look up, and then there's a thing on Broadway called the Broadway Museum. And then you're walking through these doors knowing that you have ownership in a museum in the middle of New York City. Talk about that real quick.
No, I pinch myself that God has allowed me to play a small part of these ventures. We have 5 current shows on Broadway, from Buena Vista Social Club to Dead Outlaw, which is a funny Westerner, Caberet, of course, MJ, and Hell's Kitchen. And we recently announced the Hell's Kitchen tour, which I'll be a part of that as well. We have a few surprises there. So I can't even put it into words. I hope it emulates or inspires people to see you can emulate this and do this yourself, no matter where you're from. I would say from Bridgeport to Broadway. That's my story. I came from a small town, Bridgeport, industrial town, tough town, gritty town. And now 45 miles down the road, we've got, all these multi-million-dollar entities that are selling out every night.
So we go from MJ to Hell's Kitchen, from Hell's Kitchen to Buena Vista, and from Buena Vista to Dead Outlaw. And the crazy thing about the last two of that conversation is that on this weekend, the Tonys are happening, and you are now a Tony-nominated producer. Sir, how does that feel?
It's mind-boggling. I'm so excited to be at the show and trying to get the wardrobe together, but it is It's just speechless. I wish my grandparents were here to see it. My grandparents who helped my mom raise me, I just wish they were here to see it, and Uncle Bill, because it's just mind-boggling to see what God has done and trusting your instincts. I get hit with probably 4 or 5 plays a month, and I pass on them. And I can name some of the popular ones like The Wiz, Othello's, ones that I passed on. So to pick 2, Buena Vista and Dead Outlaw and Hell's Kitchen in this season, and collectively the 3 of them have 33 Tony Award nominations. Between those 3 plays, Hell's Kitchen, BVS as we call Buena Vista, and Dead Outlaw, and 2 of them this weekend will be up for 17.
17 this weekend.
Yeah,
there's a Grammy for Hell's Kitchen.
It's Grammys for Hell's Kitchen, yeah.
And so soon you might be an EGOT. So we
well,
we have a television show now.
Let me say this before we go. What's great about it for me is like the larger your platform, the larger the number of people you can inspire and the number of people you can help. So that's what's phenomenal to me. That if you start doing things, something Pastor Watts says to me, and even Lee Jenkins, my pastor in Atlanta. I feel like I have multiple pastors because I travel to different states every month. But Pastor Watts always says, God will give to you if he knows he can work through you. And when you see what's happening with us on Broadway, I just look at it as a funnel, just a pipeline, because God is knowing, okay, if we set you up, you can help more people. There's more people buying houses. There's more halfway houses we can do. There's more libraries, museums, whatever we want to do. There's more educational stuff that we can do. There's more scholarships we can give out. My son and I have probably given out 100 scholarships, book scholarships to Howard over the years. Kids coming into Howard, the law school, the undergrad, paying for the LSAT, stuff like that. And we don't make a big announcement about it. I'm sharing it in this moment to say that's what this Broadway stuff allows us to do. It allows us to create internships, to create externships, to give out scholarships, just to do all that kind of stuff. And you don't get to do that if you don't get the stage.
You have to build.
It's fast.
Here's the learning for you guys. You have to build inside of your layered structure of your company a revenue layer that generates what you need to do so that you can go do the ministry or the stuff that you love. That's a hard lesson. Everything is not always about sales, but you do need sales in order to get the money and the revenue layer going for what you need. And one of the great things, and you set this up so perfectly, it's almost like we rehearsed, but we've been partners, 26 years now?
About that. And let me just say, I'm proud of you, by the way. I didn't get to say that at the top because you rushed right to the interview, but I'm proud of you. You downplay yourself, but you came into my office, like you said, to answer phones. And now you're managing mega churches. You're doing video, audio, technology, websites, marketing, you name it, for some of the who's of the world, not just America, but the world. I saw your rollout for Yolanda Adams. That was incredible, what you've done for her and what you are doing for her. So I want to make sure people see how 2 brothers came together. I didn't know anything about running a business. You were a young man. We met in a church playing instruments together, and how fast forward 20 plus years later, God has given us a platform, and we've helped so many others get put on. There was a time where you and I would look at a Billboard chart and we'd see 20 records that we did all the paperwork for and the production council for. And that's, to me, where God has blessed us to be. That's how I look at this whole Broadway thing. I look at it as just God opening a whole new lane, a whole new way to help folks. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure we gave you your kudos.
Thank you, sir. And when we talk platform, and we're almost running out, that is why you've started Stillwater Partners on Broadway.
Correct.
And that goes back again to your name back in college. And now you've created Stillwater Partners on Broadway. Talk a little bit about what that is.
I was doing all these plays for a year. We're at number 16 now. And my son, James III, who's a Wall Street lawyer, investment banker type, he came to me and said, Dad, we need to start setting up separate LLCs. We need to start setting up separate companies for you to do this. So he said, what do you want your company to be named? And I said, well, let's call it Stillwater Partners. Since, I'm partnered with other people. I have investors. I have partners like yourself. So we set up Stillwater Partners, and we look at it as a conduit for more people that look like you and me to get in this Broadway lane as producers, as investors, as actors, as directors, whatever their interest is. when I go to the Tonys on Sunday, I'm the only black male producer on Dead Outlaw. Now, my job is to make sure the next time I go to the Tonys, if I'm on a production, there's 10 black male producers in the room. That's how you do this. You don't want to boast, I'm the only black guy in the bank doing this. I'm the only black guy you don't want to be that guy. You want to be the guy like I watched my son do. My son went to work for Paul Weiss one summer, a big law firm. The next summer, they had 9 Howard kids. My son was there like as the only one or two. The next summer, they had 9 Howard law students. And many of them are still there making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year because my son threw the key back out and made sure he brought in other Howard people. That's what we have to do on Broadway. We use Stillwater Partners as a conduit to say, okay, this next big play coming, they doing Othello too. Okay, let's get Richard Byrd. Let's grab this person. Let's all put in. And I want to salute Othello. My friend Candy Burris is big with that one. And I want to make sure I salute her and what she was my partner on a piano lesson. So I'm very happy for the success of Othello, all the records they're breaking. And I think they've already recouped, which is amazing. On Broadway, probably 10 or 20% of plays recoup. 80% of them just flounder. So we have 5 that are all doing really well, but that's a kind of unheard of thing, knock on wood. So Othello has recouped already. So I'm very proud of the team over there.
Because that's this is the start, just so you guys know, this is the start of many conversations that Attorney Walker and I are going to have as we walk you through the new podcasts that are going to be coming out on just things that happen in business, but also in the legal and entertainment field. Understand that Broadway sounds wonderful, but you can be into a show $8 to $10 million. And you are recouping on a show that only has a seat capacity of 800 seats.
Right.
800 to maybe 1,000 seats doing 6 shows. That is, you look at Beyonce and you're like, oh, how's she making money? But she's in a 30,000 seater. You can you can rock business that way. Which, when you're trying to make money like this on a small venue, go ahead.
We should thank Beyonce's mother, Tina Knowles, because Miss Tina has brought countless people to see MJ the Musical.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful.
Very supportive. And I also want to make sure people ask me all the time, how do you do the legal and how do you do the Broadway thing and the real estate thing simultaneously? And I have to say, we have good people. Taja, Ife, Carla, Paul, Jenna, Richard Byrd, Jillian, KD. We have so many good people. Gina Ryan. We have so many people that are just killing it. Josiah, we just had a young man from Morehouse join us. He's in law school, but he's got a Morehouse background. So we've been so fortunate that we have a team of probably about 10 or 12 people when everybody's on the Zoom and the meetings that are all doing it. Then my son helps us in the legal side and a couple other junior attorneys that help us. And then our outside counsels are very helpful. So I want to make sure I thank all of them because people see you and I, Richard, and they don't realize like there's a whole lot of people, the Broadway team, Stephen and Aaliyah, picking the right plays and calling me. Leah and Lauren picking the Dead Outlaw and calling me saying, hey, you should be in this. So that's how fortunate we are. We have good people who are all humble, put your head down. We call them lunch tote guys. Just bring their lunch tote to work, say, let's work. Let's get it done. Nobody's trying to do a lot of foo-foo. Nobody's trying to be seen on the red carpet, whatever. You got to do that, opening night. But for the most part, everybody's head down, working these long hours, reviewing charts, reviewing documents, reviewing financials, reviewing contracts. And I just thank God because I really believe we're creating a conduit that's going to help just dozens and dozens, if not thousands of people when it's all said and done. Like I said, I don't want to be he's the only black guy, blah, 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 I want to be where people can say, oh, there's 10 of us in here. We got our own little party going on at the Tony. There are 10 people that look like me. Because I remember going to the Grammys and always feeling like, where's everybody at? It's 3,000 people in this arena or 15,000 at the crypto arena in LA, and you can count us on one hand.
And we're all in row 372.
As executives, outside of the artists.
Yeah. Trying to see if there's someone in the lower seats that didn't sit down right, and we can sneak down.
Yeah, it's just no, we don't want to do that no more. So I hope when people from Bridgeport see Broadway, I hope they see me and see Bridgeport and see, hey, I could do that too. Right. I hope people in Atlanta, when they see me or run up on me, I hope they see like just a regular guy working hard, raising 4 good kids, and you can do the same thing too. If you trust God and put the work in.
And so Stillwater is, you always talk platform.
Mm-hmm.
Stillwater is the platform that you're using to finance the the soup kitchen over for the pastor you talked about earlier. I just want people to see
Oh
how,
yes,
how
yeah.
that layer works.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
platform here is using funds through this to go fund something else, and also creating some opportunities. I know I've seen some stuff cross my desk about creating some student opportunities and internships for people coming out of HBCUs who might want to learn not just on stage theater, but the back, what happens on the backstage, what happens in the business.
I sit on the board for the Howard College of Fine Arts, the Chadwick Boseman College of Fine Arts, named obviously after the late great actor who attended Howard and attended the Fine Arts School. And one of the programs we're working on now is Howard has given me an approval to partner with one of our Broadway productions and try to create a pipeline for Howard students to come work on Broadway. So we're in the initial stages of having conversations with a couple of the productions on Broadway to see how we can make this work, how we can get the students paid, and hopefully come summer, students are coming out 8 to 10 weeks working on Broadway, learning everything, not just on stage, but what I do behind the stage with contracts, what some of the co-producers do, what the lead producers do, what the investors do, what the company managers do, what the technical team do. Like I want our students to just learn the whole gamut, kind of like how we learned when we were watching David Talbert, when we were watching The Knowledge, when we were watching Vi Higginson and Mama, I Want to Sing. I want the students to
Matthew Knowles.
And Matthew Knowles, right.
Yeah.
We want people to see all of that stuff so that they get an idea, like you can do this too. And it's so many other jobs beyond just being the dream girl in the front of the stage. Like you can be the whole gamut.
Who happens to be a client?
Yes, yes, Jennifer Holiday, yes.
Let me just, I'm gonna throw this in here and then we got 2 more questions out.
All right.
You called me up and you're like, Bird, I need you to hop on this call. You don't tell me nothing. Don't say nothing. I need you on this call right away. So I hop on the call and I hear this voice on the other side that is Jennifer Holiday. There's not many people that that I've been tongue tied with. I think it was her and Twinkie Clark. I said, man, how do you wake up? Because again, Jay, there are people that we looked up to when we were younger that are now clients. I believe that we've either represented or the whole Caribbean, if not. It's like, how does that work?
It's funny you say that because I haven't announced yet. I've been working quietly on a movie involving some people, but it's funny you say that because I woke up this morning to a text message from Dave Winfield. And Dave is my hero growing up. He played for the Yankees back in the 70s, 80s. I'm a baseball guy. I trained my son Zion to be in the baseball, the whole nine. And Dave went to see Buena Vista Social Club last night. And I posted it. His wife posted it today so I can share it. She thanked us publicly on Instagram. And I was just mind boggled. Like one of my biggest heroes came to see my play at my invitation. I remember sending him the information about tickets a few weeks ago, and I totally forgot. And then he hit me today and said, man, it's one of the best plays I've seen. Good luck at Tony's. And that's what this life is about. Like you're at a stage where you're working hard, you're keeping your head down, and you're at the intersection of meeting people who have inspired your life, and then at the same time trying to inspire other lives coming behind you. That's what this is really about. That's and when you have a day where we're working on Jennifer Holiday's movie, we have Cass Beatles writing the script now, and we're going to start putting the pieces together. Then we're doing some film stuff. Outside of that, then I have the Silent Partner movie coming with Kernan Salman and Roderick Lawrence. We posted that a while back. Selma Karnan. I'm missing her name up in Russian. But Selma's working on that with us. And then we have more plays coming. And then the law firm has stuff coming. So all these things bring you to this intersection where you're able to just help so many people coming behind. That's the whole goal of the game. You and I are good. If we never work again, we've saved, we've made connections, we're good. But
we can rest on the royalties.
What did you say?
We can rest on royalties.
we did the right thing. So now we have to make sure, the elders are taken care of. Parents, the aunts, the uncles, grandparents, whatever. We're making sure they're taken care of. And then we're making sure those down here coming behind us understand how to build their legacy, how to build their foundation, their financial base, their spiritual, emotional, mental, all of that, how to build all of those bases so that when they become 40 and 50 years old, they can do it for the next one and the next one. That's kind of what this is. We sit right here in the middle.
Right.
Got your mothers above you, and you got the Bird boys and the Walker boys and daughters underneath, and their kids that are coming, and we're in the middle trying to make sure everybody's stabilized, make sure we got enough for everybody. That's what it is now. When I'm closing a deal, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, we had $100,000 come in. All right, we can probably get 4 more houses. Let me call some young people and see who needs a loan, who needs a deposit, who needs a down payment, who needs, because it's money. Like, what you gonna do? Just stock it all up, store it all up for yourself, or are you gonna go out here and give some back? If anybody hears this message who's doing very well, I hope they're thinking like, let me go bless someone else. Let me go bless an organization. Let me go give to a food pantry. I wasn't even gonna announce the food pantry thing. Pastor Watts announced it. My cousin Willie told me today he announced it at church on Sunday while you were gone. He actually flashed. He had told me he was thinking of doing it, but I didn't know if he did it because I want others to see that we got to give. We got to give.
You got to give. You got to, sowing and reaping requires both to happen. And you can't make when your fist is tight. It's hard to put stuff in a closed fist. Mm-hmm. Jay, one of the things you taught me is do 10 things a day.
You still remember that?
I want you, because everything I do, every podcast has to have at least one good business nugget for someone to walk home. Talk very quickly, and then after that, we got our closing question after that. What is the mantra or what is your methodology on 10 things a day?
My methodology on it is, if I understand you correctly, it's that if I start with 10 others are going to come in, and I'm probably going to get 15 to 20 of them done a day. If I start on Monday with 10, by Friday, I've done 50 things. So it might be make this call, send this email out, review this contract, get this retainer letter out, file this complaint, serve this discovery, show up for this interview, send out a note to somebody I met this weekend in South Carolina. Like, those might be my top 10. And then a little part about, okay, pay this bill, pay that bill, get this done, call financial, make sure that's done. So if you start your day with that, you don't have to think as much in the morning because you got a to-do list to start you off until you get your coffee, your tea, your lemon water, whatever you do, your vegan meal, whatever your smoothie. And then by noon, you hit and another 5 or 10 things come in and you look up at 6 o'clock and say, wow, I got a lot done today. I got a lot. That's always been my mind. And I found a list like that I had written in college. I was unpacking some old boxes and I had a little handwritten list in a notebook from college where I was literally making a list because at that time I was doing all the parties, studying, doing the fraternity thing, and I was overwhelmed. So I would write out the night before, here's all the places we got to get flyers. Here's all the people that are going to sell tickets for me. Here are the radio stations I got to go by and drop off ads and drop off posters and ticket giveaways. I had it all on the list.
Yeah.
And it just kept me
we
real.
do 10 things a day. At least you've moving the ball forward 50 times by the end of the week. And the other business lesson there is in the morning time. This is another lesson from the desk of James Walker. Do the thing closest to the money first. Right. Thing closest to the money every day. And at the end of the week, you'll get good. Jay, it's been wonderful, sir. Last question of the day. We've talked legacy. We've talked give back. We've talked how, we've kind of structured some things over the years. What's that one thing that has just been burning in your heart to say to a young person walking up that wants to be like you?
That burning thing is to tell them that we care about them. And we care about them not because of any personal gain to us, but that we care about you because you are the future and you are us. Everything you and I do is for these boys and these daughters coming behind us. So that burning thing that I really want young people to know is how much we tarry on our knees for them, how much we just tarry at night for them to get it. I have some now that are taking the bar. So I'm sending them out text messages this week. Harvard Law students, how you doing? How's the studying going? Remember, you've never been in the lower of anything in your life. So I don't expect you to be there on the bar exam because you've never been, in the lower 20%. You've always done better. That's how you made it to law school. So trying to get them to see that although sometimes you and I might give them tough love, it's still love. Tough love is still love. And it's a love because we know how hard it's going to be for you when you get out here. As a young lawyer, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a client and you're new to this success, you're American Idol and you got 26 million people voting for you, sometimes we have to tell you the tough things that no one else will tell you, but no, it's because we care about you.
Right.
No, it's because, and that's family, friends, clients, everybody. None of it is personal. None of it is an axe to grind. None of it is, oh, we're upset. All of it is like when I talk to your five boys who are like nephews and sons to me, I'm talking to them from a place of, you like my son. You grew up sitting on my couch, sleeping on my couch while your dad worked in another room. You grew up doing your homework in my buildings while your dad was, doing stuff for us, or your mother was working the front desk or whatever. So, like, come on, we care about you. It might be tough sometimes to tell you the hard things, but know that we care about you. That's kind of the thing in my heart. Because people have a preconceived notion of a lawyer. They have a preconceived notion of you on Broadway, preconceived notion of Black men, whatever, your age. So getting them to see, even my Broadway people, some of my ideals are so nouveau, so out of the box, that I think some of my Broadway people are like, he want to do an internship. What's that? He want us to market the play this way. He want us to advertise. Yes, we care about you. We care about you making your money back. Because if you fail, I fail, and we can't pay a food pantry. We can't give money for scholarships if this don't work out. So I tell you, even the museum, I got to tell you what I see in a diaspora that I'm in that you're not, so that you can understand we can help you win here. And a lot of times people think it's about Richard Byrd. When you say that, they think you want to see your name on the building. You don't need that. You good. You and I probably got 100 articles out there, videos and YouTubes. You don't need none of that. We're telling you because we care. That's the only reason we're telling you, not because we need fame or fortune or kudos or, a social media post. So that's the hardest part, I think, for people to realize. Yeah. That you're not doing it because you need anything from it. You're doing it because you care.
Right. And legacy at the end of the day is about being able to leave something for your children's children, and being able to make sure at the end of the day that you have totally impacted people and influenced and made a difference. My favorite saying is impact the world. And that is, I know that's my goal. That's been your goal. Walker, again, congratulations, my friend. We're wishing all the best on this upcoming the weekend, so that next week we can say Tony winning.
Do you have an ascot? I need an ascot to wear. Do you have an ascot for me?
Oh Lord,
I need a little Broadway-ish.
See, you jumped off the cliff.
I need a little director's, Spike Lee thing. I need the glasses. I need the fake London accent.
Oh, all right. See, we're about to get silly. About to get silly. All right.
Thank you again, and thank everybody who tunes in. Appreciate you all buying tickets, supporting our artists. The Atlanta team that supported Jamal Roberts while he was here last week. Atlanta was just on fire for Jamal. It was just crazy.
Well, sir, again, thank you, everyone. This is Table Talks. This was the legal and Broadway edition. I hope you learned something. I hope you grabbed something of value. And we look forward to seeing you on our next one. All right. Love you. God bless.